And we are recording with the one and only my pal, Dr. Peter McCullough, on Monday, June 26, 2023 at 6:05 p.m. Eastern time with your one-upping me. He already one-ups me with the handsomeness, but now my old sound panels are clearly left in the dust as Dr. McCullough has a printed skyline on his sound panels, which is also in his clinic. So not only is he a better looking, more intelligent man than me, he is also a doctor and a podcaster himself. He is taking everything from me, and soon I will have nothing left. Dr. McCullough, how are you doing?
Tommy, you still have your great looks and your youth. And I tell you what, girls out there, as far as I know, Tommy Carrigan's still single, probably the most eligible podcaster out there. He's cast in the mold of Joe Rogan. I can tell you someday he is going to be sitting atop of the podcasting world, and all the girls are going to say, I wish I would have had a chance at Tommy Carrigan. So listen, out there, a lot of girls come up to me, Tommy. I'm going to say, listen, you're still single until you tell me otherwise.
I am still single, and I will take Dr. McCullough's appraisal of me. That is my letter of recommendation, not for medical school, but for singlehood. And yes, absolutely. Thank you, Dr.
Now, Tommy, you have to tell me, are you considering any transgender relationships out there? Anybody?
I absolutely am not, and I will end this podcast right now if that's what you're trying. No, I am not. I am absolutely not. And
but why not? Tell me what we're in the age of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're supposed to consider all possibilities. So why, in your mind, have you just ruled it out?
Dr. McCullough, do you have any tattoos?
None.
Are you against tattoos?
For me, I am. Tell me, I just don't.
Well, there's your answer.
I don't like green ink under my skin.
There's your answer. I'm not against them. It's just not for me.
It's not for you. So, I couldn't convince you to get close to a boy who's undergone penile inversion vaginoplasty. No.
Absolutely not.
No, it sounds bad. It is bad. Tommy, let me tell you what, this transgender craze is absolutely a horror that's beset on America. This has to be the most horrific month we've ever seen in the media. Pride, it used to be gay pride, and now it's become this overwhelming, in your face, shove it down your throat movement. And the media is absolutely chock full of stories every night. Did you see what happened over the weekend?
I did, and it's I've been watching, and I'm with you. I've always been, I have extended family members that are homosexual. Go for it. Same thing with tattoos. I'm not covered with tattoos. You want it, man? You go for it. You're 18 years or older. My problem comes down with really childhood innocence, pushing it on children. To me, there is no excuse for it in no language, in no religion. You can't rationalize it in any way to me. I don't care if you're a doctor or a lawyer or a priest or a janitor. When you start pushing it on children, to me, I think it is a line that no adult who calls himself a man or a woman or is a loving father or loving mother, no one can stand by and watch that happen.
And how about a doctor? What good doctor, ethical doctor, would remove the breasts of a normal girl or slice open the penis of a little boy and then try to invert it and try to make it stuff it inside and make it a vagina, or do surgery on the clitoris or carve out a giant chunk of the arm and or the thigh and try to make a rudimentary penis for a girl?
That's modern. We're watching modern Nazi experiments.
Tommy, I have to tell you, I'm a doctor. I have never seen such disordered thinking in medicine and such horrors in my entire career. Do you know that now virtually every medical society, led by the Endocrine Society, but also all of the other major societies, American Medical Association, American College of Pediatrics, American College of Gynecology, they all are strongly endorsing and supporting transgender medicine. That means if a child is ambiguous as they approach puberty, and they're diagnosed with gender dysphoria, which is loosely diagnosed. That means the correct answer on a board test is start puberty blocking drugs, what's called gonadotropin releasing hormone agonists, and actually block puberty. And then start to modify the body with hormones. So if it's a girl, to receive male hormones, or a boy to receive female hormones. And then start changing that person's development. Then it's followed by surgery. That means boys getting breast implants. The penis, again, is sliced open and then inverted back into like a sock, back into the pelvis. The ureter is rerouted. Testicles are removed. There's castration. And the boy is left with basically a vagina that's a rudimentary vagina. It's leaking. The surgeries are incredibly complicated. They have horrific infections, bladder leakages. They're a mess. Clearly sterilizing on the boy side. Now, the girl's side is even more horrendous. The girl's side, the breasts are removed. Now, when the growing breasts are removed, Tommy, the lymphatic drainage is disturbed. The breasts have a robust lymphatic drainage. That's the reason why women with breast biopsies, they know they have to check the lymph nodes in the armpit. So now this has changed in the growing girls. They end up having seromas, sometimes hematomas, disfigurement. Many times the nipples removed. The patients I've seen, the nipples have been removed. There's some nipple sparing types of procedures. That the chest doesn't look normal, tends to be contracted downwards. And then what happens in the genitalia is just horrific. One procedure is called a metoidioplasty. It's trying to make the clitoris like a penis, and it's enlarging it. It gets to be about the size of a cocktail weenie, not anymore. It really doesn't do anything. But I think the most horrific procedure is called the phalloplasty.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see these pictures of carving out a huge chunk of the forearm, almost like a degloving procedure,
Yep.
or a huge part of the thigh, and then making it into something that looks like a small Oscar Mayer hot dog. And then the clitoris is kind of buried behind it, so it doesn't get an erection. It would have to have some type of implant that gets pumped up, and it is just an absolute mess. The surgeries have tremendous complication rates. The urine never flows correctly. They can't really have sex or orgasm anyway. So in children, this is an absolute mess. The surgeries are a disaster. There have been reviews on this now where there's more complications than there are numbers of surgeries out there, number of revisions. It's an absolute mess. No good surgeon should be doing it. Yet when I check, every major academic medical center is doing it. I went on famed radio broadcaster Pete Santilli's show from Columbus, and now Cincinnati Children's, the #1 children's hospital in the United States, is doing these procedures. It's absolutely astounding. Every state out there is considering legislation to ban it. Since the doctors and hospitals won't police themselves on this, they are attempting to ban it. First state to do it was Arkansas, and guess what, Tommy? A judge has already overturned that legislation in Arkansas.
Overturn the banning?
Yes.
So then why is this going? Is it as simple as money? People are paying for it, or the state's paying for it?
Well, what's in the mind of a judge? What's in the mind of a judge to think, wow, this is so meritorious that that we should overturn this ban? Now, we're not talking about adults doing what they want to do. If adults, if there's a man and he wants to get breast implants and dress up like a girl and look like a cute girl, a lot of these guys can look like cute girls, and if that's what they want to do, there's a ton of those people out there, Tommy. You can find them on Twitter or all the major social media. They pretty much don't have anything done with the penis or the testicles. In fact, they actually have sex, insertive sex, largely with men who are the same. They have anal sex. That's what they do. Now, to me, the only issue in the adult side of this transgender thing is who's paying for it. In 2016, the Obama administration wrote in at the very end that all these gender change surgeries is paid for us, the public, either CMS through Medicare, Medicaid, or commercial insurances pay for it. And we turn around and pay those, group premiums. If a woman wants breast implants or a woman wants a facelift, she pays for it out of pocket. If a man wants cosmetic surgery, he should pay for it out of pocket. It should not be covered by CMS or private insurance. That's my viewpoint. What do you think?
I tend to agree with you, and on all counts of that. Back to the judge point. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say, I would tend to side with individual liberty. If a man wants to do something or a woman wants to do something, I'm always going to lean more on the do whatever you'd like if you're an adult. I don't think that applies to children. And I really don't understand how this is anything short of child abuse. I don't even mean that in a pearl clutching, sarcastic way. I mean genuinely. When I walk back from the gym, oftentimes there's a school bus. I'm 32 years old. I'm a man. If I were to display myself to those kids, I would rightfully get the crap kicked out of me by a police officer or a parent. But if you drape yourself in a rainbow flag, you're cheered on. So I'm not even trying to be sarcastic or funny or dramatic when I say I don't actually know what the literal difference between exposing yourself and what a pride parade is. I actually don't. I don't know what the
Tommy,
legal differentiation is.
did you see those newsreels? One was from Seattle, where there was a bunch of older, mature-looking guys. These guys could have been, executives in the tech industry. They were on bicycles, completely nude, sprayed themselves all these different colors, showing their genitalia to all these little kids. And of course, the parents are taking their little kids out to see them. That's worrisome. And then there's one on Instagram, Tommy, you've got to see it. There's a Houston cop, and he is so moved by gay pride or whatever. He gets out of his cop car, and this is a busy part of Houston. It actually looks like where my son used to live, by the medical center. He gets out, and he's in a busy parking lot in a busy part of Houston, and he strips down butt naked. What? And he's just standing there dancing in front of people butt naked. And he's a cop. He's right next to the cop car.
I mean, I can't. I actually, we'll take them one by one. The individuals on the bike. I saw that video, and somebody had replied to me. They said, "Well, this is an annual thing." Fair enough, but in the video, they pan from guys with their penis and balls on their bike seats, and they get off, and they're waving, and the camera pans, and you see little kids, no more than 20 feet from them, and they're waving at the kids, and the kids are waving back. So again, I come to the legal question of what is the difference between because if I do that, I'm a 32-year-old man, and I'm in a city right now. If I walk outside and drop my pants, one, it's indecent exposure, but if there are kids nearby, I'm going to prison. So I know you're a doctor, not a lawyer, but what is the legal differentiation? We'll get to the cop stripping down. That's another thing. But what is the actual legal differentiation? I'm actually asking.
Tommy, I don't know. When you post this, let's try to get some legal scholars in about what is indecent exposure, what is child sexual abuse. Does it have to be touching, or is it just exposure to it? And or how about public lewdness? There's a few other charges, and the question is, are these suspended for the Pride Month, or if it's in a group setting, does it not count, or do people apply for permits to do this? Let's get some people. Let's get some engagement on the Tommy Carrigan podcast and help us understand, because we're getting these news feeds in. We're being asked to comment on them, and I don't even know what to say outside of as a guy. I'm a 60-year-old guy. I actually don't think these people appear very attractive to me, to be honest with you. They just don't appear to be attractive. So some of these guys, they need to really get in shape, Tommy. I mean, there's a lot of flab and just people who look like they just haven't done a sit-up in their life out there. I don't know if you saw this one. I believe it was in Chicago. This one, where there was a bus, and then people come, and then they gather on, and they jump on the hood of a car, and somebody starts doing some twerking on the hood of a car. And then this African American woman comes out of the crowd, and she's got like a G-string on, and she gets up there and she does kind of the thunder twerk on the hood of a car, and everybody is cheering. And and she had a lot to twerk, if you know what I mean. So Tommy, the thing is what is jazzing up people? Why are they just lathered up and cheering for this? It didn't happen 5 years ago that I can remember. What is it now where everybody, humans, it almost seems like it's a movie. Remember a Batman movie when the Joker and all these people would be dancing in the streets, and just kind of there's this general bizarreness. It just reminds me of that.
In terms of like the people out of shape, or those are all, we can joke about that, but there's technically nothing wrong with that. I mean, I went to an SEC college. You don't always need a reason to party. Sometimes you're partying, you're young. To me, it's the pulling the kids into it. That's where the line is drawn from. So it's like if I got drunk and started driving around, but I said it was Cinco de Mayo, or if I got if I ripped a bong and just got blitzed high, but I said it was 420, those differentiations wouldn't hold up in court. If I was a parent and I had a child and I didn't change their diaper and they got a rash from, diarrhea or urine pressed up against their skin, Child Protective Services would break down my front door and the state would take away the child. At what point do these things, like we said, become differentiated? At what point is it indecent exposure and sexual assault against a child? And at what point is it a pride parade? At what point is it gender affirming care? And at what point is it negligent parenting? And, they're going to say, well, the gender affirming care, it's for mental health. But doesn't the suicide rate go up like 10,000%?
It's true. There are multiple published papers, one in the journal called Sexual Medicine, showing that the psychiatric burden of disease goes up after the transgender hormones and surgery. It doesn't go down. It actually makes it worse. And then paper by Jackson and colleagues from the UK, transgender people actually have increased risk of mortality, homicide, suicide, and death from other causes. Now, maybe one way I think one of the things that's happening, Tommy, is these confusing terms. So I recently had a chance to talk to Dr. Miriam Grossman. And if you don't know her, you should look her up. She's got a book called Trans Nation. New
She's
word.
Coming
nation.
on here later, I think next month.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So she's going to she just testified in Congress. Ask her about that. And I think what she'll clarify, Tommy, is that gender affirmation is when you're a little boy and your dad says, Tommy, you're going to grow up to be a big, strong man. That's gender. That's actually correct gender affirmation. Or a little girl and her mother talks to her and said, you're going to grow up to be a woman like me. That's gender affirmation. The word has been twisted around to say gender affirmation means that someone should change their gender. No, that's transsexual thinking is what that is. So all these words, you probably saw Elon Musk out there really attacking these terms, this cis male term. In medicine, we say normal. So when I say a normal man, that's what I mean, a normal man, normal woman. I'm not going to start using these terms, these Latin terms, cis and all the rest of this, because, quickly we become very confused. And what we're seeing, Tommy, is some type of worldwide simultaneous new shift in human sexuality, and no one can figure out where it's coming from. Let me give you some examples. I've talked to some parents and teachers and people running for school board. They say that the pornography is pouring into the schools, K through 12. No one knows where it's coming from. They say basically the books arrive at the library, they open them up, and they're just wide open pornography. They're wide open pornography. And when you ask a question in a school and say, who's responsible? Who is responsible for this pornographic item? Nobody seems to know. It's very similar to COVID-19 vaccine mandates. No one steps up and say, I'm responsible for this mandate. I'm responsible for the new porn in the schools. No one will admit it. The same thing when it comes to all of these other transgender things. No one will stand up. Like, let's say American Medical Association. American Medical Association said in 2021, we should no longer put gender on the birth certificate. Well, who at the AMA? What was the panel? What was the group? No one will admit that they were involved. It's just like COVID-19 vaccines. No one will step up and say that they're accountable for it. Yet it's a change happening. And Tommy, it's happening all over the world. Putin is trying to put down transgender outbreaks in Russia. I recently checked the website in Indonesia. They're trying to squash it over there. Then there's people trying to defend it. And let me tell you another group that suddenly became awake after 3 years of silence. We suddenly hear from them, the American Civil Liberties Union, Tommy, ACLU. Yeah, what happened in COVID? People were stripped of their rights. They couldn't leave their houses. They were stuck in the hospital. They were dying. They couldn't see their family members, couldn't get medications, were forced into taking vaccines. More died. ACLU, nowhere to be found. And then suddenly when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, someone wants a gender change surgery. The ACLU is the first one to jump forward and defend them.
Yeah, I tend to have to just use my own intuition. And when when the push for all of this comes in so hard and so fast and is so directed at children, I don't have a receipt. I don't have some classified document, but just general human intuition. I would say it's an attempt at the normalization of pedophilia. I don't, gun to my head, that's my answer.
But Tommy, who's pulling the trigger? Somebody has to order the books. Who is pulling the trigger on this?
I mean, I would imagine wealthy pedophiles who, probably the same wealthy pedophiles that went to an island with an occult temple on it. That's no longer conspiracy. That's no longer like tinfoil hat. No, there's an island with a private plane where ex-presidents dropped off their Secret Service details and went to this island of a convicted pedophile who also owned a ranch, who was all into weird transhumanism stuff, who also owned an extremely expensive penthouse in Manhattan and was friends with Les Wexner, the billionaire Victoria's Secret guy. This isn't like, you don't need to be Sherlock Holmes.
So Tommy, you must be referring to Epstein's Island.
Yes, and I would also refer to the book The Spider about Jeffrey Epstein.
Okay, so just so I can learn, I'm just not keeping up on the Epstein developments. Who are some of the confirmed visitors to Epstein's Island that you think are solid? You're willing to state it. You think they're legit.
42nd president of the United States, Bill Clinton.
Okay, who else?
That's the only one I know for sure. I don't want to slander anyone, especially because I'm not a billionaire and I can't fight these.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
but there must have been others, right?
Well, there are pictures with Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, Ghislaine Maxwell's father was in the Mossad, and he mysteriously died when his body was thrown off a yacht out in an ocean. And she was Epstein's procurer. She would find the girls for him.
Yeah, we're going to need a lot more investigative journalism on this. I'm not keeping up on it, but you're right. We need kind of the list. I mean, that gives you an idea of the pedophilia. The hard thing with pictures, Tommy, is this, and believe me, I am probably at this point in time, tens of thousands of pictures at all the public events. That one's too hard. There could have been some criminal says, hey, can I have a picture? I would have no idea. And so I'm a little bit sympathetic to Trump or all these people who get pictures just because so many. One event in Australia time is easily 400.
Okay.
There's just no way I could keep up with who's who.
Fair enough.
But going to a pedophilia resort is something that I think ultimately, there's records, there's ways to figure it out. We need investigative journalism, but it's occurring simultaneously all over the world. hypersexualizing children simultaneously and rapidly. There's another video on Instagram. I don't know if you saw it. It looks like a girl who's probably like 18, and she's just basically bent over doing the twerk bump on like an 8-year-old boy in the pool, and everyone's cheering her on.
Right.
Yeah, you'll see it on Instagram. I know people are watching this, know what I'm talking about. These videos now, Tommy, are coming out everywhere. Probably the coup de grace was the one in New York City, the queer parade and chant. Did you see that one?
Yes, and I think, let's see if I can pull it up. I think it should show up here for.
Well, while you're doing that, let me set the stage. I know you're such an ace with Zoom, Tommy.
No, I'm really not.
And share your screen, but maybe you can post-production put it in there. But listen, this had coverage. Fox News, had a piece on it. What this was is this was a parade, and there was various and sundry people. I don't even know what genders they were: makeup, costumes, braless, bottomless, you name it. And they say, "We are queer, and we're coming for your children." And that was the name of their chant. And they were circling up, and they circled up, and they did some more chanting. And I was interested because a reporter chased down New York State Representative Gerald Nadler. So Nadler is in this group. And they asked him about some particular piece of legislation or some initiative on diversity, equity, inclusion. He goes, "I've never heard of it." And Nadler looks completely lost. He looked about as lost as he did on the House floor the other day when he said that 2-year-olds should wear masks and take vaccines. He just looked completely lost. By the way, Nadler out on the streets with all these people, he wasn't wearing any mask. And then the other person they caught up with was Chuck Schumer.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck Schumer. Now he's wearing a T-shirt, and he's got some pride insignia on his sleeve. And he's actually carrying a megaphone. He's at a megaphone, and he goes, "I supported this diversity legislation," almost like he was trying to shag a few extra votes out there from the committee. But it really was a house of horrors. But what do you think about that chant of "We're coming for your children"?
Well, on kind of like the meme surface, it kind of seems like the cycle of, here is news topic A, whatever A is. It's a far right conspiracy. And then, a month later, news topic A is it's misinformation. It's not actually happening. And then it's news topic A is happening, but it's being blown out of proportion. And then the final is it is happening, and here's why that's a good thing. And then you move on to the next topic. So whether it's, drag shows for children, or what now it's coming for your children, it starts as a far right, pearl clutching conspiracy theory, to its misinformation, to its hate speech, to finally it is happening, and here's why that's a good thing. It's about a week after the 2020 election when the New York Times released an article that said the shadow campaign that helped save the 2020 election. That's where the term fortifying election came from where a bunch of billionaires and news sources got together to fortify an election. Or it's like I think you came on here is December of last year, and you talked about the DARPA P3 Adept program, right?
Yeah.
Where it's a far right conspiracy. And then as the months go by and the documents come out, you start to piece together, oh, this is a military operation, and it was rolled out under the guise of private corporations, namely AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, and Pfizer. And here's why that's a good thing. So I can only conclude that we are in the early stages of Pride Month is being pushed onto children because they want to normalize pedophilia, and that's a far right conspiracy theory. And as the months go on, and as we get into next year, it'll eventually come out. There will be some funding. Who paid for the books? Who paid for all this affirming care? Who paid for these bills? And it's going to turn out, ding, 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 to be a bunch of wealthy pedophiles. I'll put my bet there.
Don't you think that with this one, there's a lot more open complicity? So I mentioned Nadler and Schumer, they're both in the House of Representatives,
Mm-hmm.
On scene, right,
Sure.
with this man. How about Joe Biden on the lawn of the White House with the gay pride weekend celebration?
Mm-hmm.
And there is this transgender guy who's got breast implants, and he
Takes
shakes
your shirt
hands
off.
with Biden. He's some type of social media influencer. And then he starts all this seductive dancing. And then he just pulls down the top of his dress and he shows his male breast with implants. And he starts playing with it. My first thing that came to my mind is that's a guy who's used to going bare chested. As all kids, when we were kids, we went out bare chested, and men have bare chests. And so he felt very comfortable with it. And he was just playing with the silicone underneath the skin. And, that made the news, and finally was rebuked by, the White House response team. But, whether it's a guy or a girl, you just wouldn't pull your shirt off on the lawn of the White House. There's decorum, there's reasonableness. I've people know, they've seen me in Washington a lot. I've certainly been at, there. I always wear a suit and tie. If I was ever asked to do anything with the White House, it would always be sport coat, tie, just decency.
Yeah. Dressed to the nines. Yeah. But it does kind of make me think of I'm less inclined to, I guess, be shocked when you see politicians in this, because they're always going to pander for votes. So if you're there at the microphone and say, I'm doing this, okay, yeah, it doesn't make it better, but it's expected almost. It does make me think of the meme where it's, when Republicans are in office and it shows a B-52 bombing some village, and then it says when Democrats are in office, it's a B-52, but it's got a pride flag and a BLM flag on. When you look at the amount of money we're sending overseas to this proxy war, nothing's actually changing. The window dressing changes. We dye our hair rainbow and we take our pants off in front of kids and say, yes, queen. But the amount of armaments we're sending to yet another war overseas doesn't change at all. So to me, this is just the military industrial complex evolving with the times.
Boy, Tommy, I tell you, over time, I think you've just become more sardonic in your analysis. What is your view of this this coup or pseudo coup from the Wagner
From
group?
Wagner.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
just what's the short? I mean, I'm just a doctor. I'm trying to interpret it. You're far ahead of me in geopolitics. What was that all about?
I'm still trying to unpack what that is, man. Whatever we saw wasn't what we saw, if that makes sense, right? It seemed real. Putin fled in the equivalent of Air Force One to their nuclear bunkers. Wagner was rolling in deep with like 25,000 mercenaries. Moscow put up, the KGB and the FSB put dump trucks full of sand on the highways. The Wagner tanks drove through it. Wagner allegedly shot down a Russian helicopter and a Russian, I think, C-3 command controlled communications plane, like $200 million plane. And then Prigozhin gets to Moscow and apparently says LOL JK, and he and Putin are besties. And Putin, a ruthless former KGB agent, doesn't immediately have Prigozhin shot in the head, despite earlier in the day coming out and saying there's only one thing unforgivable in this world: betrayal. And $6.2 billion goes unaccounted for, which I feel like was probably the CIA trying to pay Wagner to do a coup. I don't know what just happened, man. And whatever it is, we don't know. I don't think we know.
And what about
That's
this
a hairy
business of,
one.
well, the president of Belarus says something? The only thing I think just didn't jive with what you said, though, is I think your estimate of the troop strength that he had was much greater than what he had. I
Oh,
mean,
really?
yeah, I think the reality is he didn't have that troop strength, but I did see the videos of them crashing through a sand truck barrier,
Yeah.
and at least this had to be a little bit unsettling for Pootie, don't
Yeah.
you think? Or
Something happened there, man. See, I wouldn't put it out of like Putin's, I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility that this was a sign. I mean, the guy's former KGB. He is a spook. He is as spook as they come. I also wouldn't put it out of, I don't think he's any Care Bear. I don't think he's some teddy bear. I wouldn't put it out of his way to actually have Russian soldiers killed if it helped sustain a psyop. There's just something, it seemed like a backed coup. It seemed very kind of like we were talking about the P3 Adept program. At the time, during the fog of war, something can seem very, how is it all happening? But there was like robocalls to people in Moscow, like military age men were getting voicemails saying like join the streets, join Wagner. That doesn't, yeah, man, that's like
Really?
there's an external backer. Now, is it the CIA? I don't know. Is it the Mossad? I have no idea. Whatever. I don't know what that was. I do know though is if a coup doesn't succeed, how's the saying go? It means it was a practice run, which means you have to put down the coup and you have to kill everyone involved. That's what happens. Why is Prigozhin still walking around? If that was an actual coup attempt, you'd have him beheaded like on the Kremlin lawn. I mean, now granted, I also do a podcast from my bedroom screaming at a camera. So whereas you're a doctor, I don't even have those credentials. So I have no idea what's going on.
I mean, it's really quite a development, but it's pretty clear that we're finishing Pride Month with these ghoulish images all over the world, just looking like ghouls. We're coming for your children, and just these, parents are horrified. You may have a few parents on the side of the road, but I think parents nationwide are recoiling with this. I'm talking to my patients in the office; they're completely disgusted with this. It's absolutely horrendous. I want to tie up a little loose end, Tommy, because so many people have them, and that is regarding tattoos. Tattoos. When I was a kid, the only people with tattoos would be like a sailor who got like a green anchor on his forearm,
military,
like a Popeye, eating spinach. I remember that as a kid. But now, in Gen Z and probably your generation, Tommy, it's 30% of people have tattoos. Now, the vast majority of tattoos, Tommy, are like a forest green ink. The vast majority. Green ink is the dominant color. And the question is, what is it about the human mind that enjoys kind of this green ink color beneath the skin? I know there's different designs. On Instagram, I recently, just for fun, took a picture. There was this gal who's very tall. She was at this group dinner, and she had a tattoo on her arm. And normally I wouldn't pay attention to tattoos, particularly on another woman. But this one, Tommy, was an EKG. And I'm a cardiologist, so I instantly tried to interpret the rhythm. And I asked her, I said, do you even know what this rhythm is? Do you know? All cardiac rhythms have certain names. You thought it had some particular meaning for her. She goes, well, no, I don't even know what it means. It was long, Tommy. This thing was 6 to 8 inches long. So the question is, what would motivate a woman to have an EKG where she didn't even ask if it was a right bundle branch block, a left bundle branch block? Was it sinus rhythm, premature atrial contractions, atrial fibrillation? What meaning did this have? I've asked other people. Typically, these ones you kind of see crawling up somebody's back, and they tend to be Chinese letters.
Yeah.
And I'll ask them, what does it mean? Maybe they've studied it. Maybe it means, the meaning of life for their family. They'll say, well, I don't even know what it means.
Yeah.
What would cause somebody to get Chinese symbols put on their skin? They don't even know what it means. So anyhow, this 30%, like, what's the big deal? People can do what they want to do. My observation is, I think there's a lot of mimicking. People like to mimic each other. If somebody starts doing it, everyone does it. Everything from green tattoos. How many athletes have you seen, Tommy? Let's just kind of pick on athletes for a second. How many athletes do you see who have diamond earrings? Come on, guys with diamond earrings. It seems like everybody needs to have a diamond earring, right? It just seems like they're copying each other. How about in the NBA? Have you ever paid attention to hairstyles in the NBA? don't they tend to just kind of copy each other?
Mm-hmm.
Like one guy starts to do cornrows, the next guy does cornrows, and then some guy does a big wop haircut, then somebody else does. Or how about in the NFL? How about these manes of dreadlocks that are so substantial? Have you ever seen an NFL player where he actually gets tackled by the dreadlocks?
Yeah.
It's like grabbing a big bundle of braids of rope and just boom, down they go. But people seem to imitate each other, and they enjoy it. And we could be accused of the same thing, where that you're imitating somebody by having a red flag, and I'm imitating somebody by wearing a lab coat or a tie. But what I can say is, listen, doctors, as far as I can tell, have been wearing lab coats for 100 years. So I just, it's like a uniform. Wearing a tie, as far as I can tell, people are doing that probably 100 years or more. It's just, I just do it out of respect. Not that it's terribly comfortable wearing a tie, but these explosive imitative things are nuts. Now I know they go on in cultures, Tommy, because I read the book it was written about Theodore Roosevelt, and I'm trying to think who the first author is. But when he goes down the River of Doubt in South America, it's called River of Doubt. I don't know if you read that book, but Teddy Roosevelt, when he wanted to get reelected, he didn't get reelected. He went into a deep depression. And he told his son, I'm so depressed, I got to do something. I didn't win reelection. And they decide to take a trip to South America. And they attempt to go down a river that no one has even known about before. And it becomes River of Doubt. And they encounter Indians and get malaria, and there's, snake bites, all this stuff happens. But one of the vignettes is when they encounter some deep tribes in the Amazon. And all the people have put these sticks in their lips, like sticks that are about like 6 inches long. You've probably seen them. And they can barely close their lips, and all these sticks are up their face. And I think it was Roosevelt or his son asked him, he goes, why do you guys do that? I mean, why do you do it? And of course, they've probably been doing it for hundreds of years, Tommy. And they basically said, listen, we do this to make ourselves look more fearsome.
Okay.
Like we look more ferocious if we have these teeth, because obviously they're trying to imitate, a tiger or something,
predator,
right? A predator. So, this has been going on for a long time, but, my only issue with tattoos as a doctor is the explosion of hepatitis C that we've had in America. Now there's a multi-drug treatment, but it costs about $60,000 a whack. But the current point prevalence of hepatitis C in the United States is? It's actually 7%. 7%. Now, I told you the rate of tattoos is about 30%. Well, hepatitis C, where do people get hepatitis C from? Well, you get it from IV drug abuse. You got to have some really heavy sexual intercourse with somebody with active hepatitis C to transmit it sexually. And it just doesn't transmit that easily. It doesn't. I've taken care of patients my whole life, and we check for hepatitis C. You could get it through a blood transfusion years ago before they started checking for it. But I went to a lecture from a hepatitis C expert here in Dallas, a really good guy, and he lays it out. Give a great chalkboard talk on it. And he was talking about the risk factors, and he named the ones that I named. And then he said one last risk factor: tattoos. I go, ooh, that caught my interest. So I stayed through the lecture, and I asked him, I said, okay, how does that happen? He goes, well, it's an independent risk factor and potentially an indirect risk factor. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? He says, we can't prove it, but these tattoo parlors are likely reusing the ink from person to person. Now, they may use clean needles, but they certainly reuse the ink. And so the virus theoretically could live in the ink. Now, no one's proven that, but because you can't go in and do research studies on tattoo ink in some of these shady tattoo, but they're probably not using single ink sources. It's kind of like, painting a painting. You open up a jar of paint, you use it, and you close the jar of paint. That's likely what's going on. And it does pass that way. I can tell you a vignette on my wife's side of the family, a distant side of her side of the family, but part of people that were married for a while, They came from Italy, a poor part of Italy. And believe it or not, everybody in the family of the older generation got hepatitis C, and it was virulent hepatitis C. And many of them either died or needed liver transplants. I mean, tons of them. And you know what we found out is they had some type of vaccination campaign around the time of World War II or the Korean War. And chances are it was smallpox vaccination or what they were doing. But the bottom line is, Tommy, they were reusing the needle from person to person to person. And that's how the hepatitis C was spreading.
I mean, concerning tattoos, I mean, I have one. It's of my brother's initials. It's on my shoulder. And no one needs to justify tattoos. But I would imagine it's probably along the lines of, on one hand, you were either seeing like the moral degeneracy of the West, which comes from, superfluous wealth. We saw that in Rome with like, the bathhouses, pedophilia and eating until you puked. But I would also imagine there's just the innate rebellion. There's always part of you that just wants to not do what your parents did. And then you see that compile on top of each other over generations. But it seems like we're hitting almost like an asymptotic inversion to where it is no longer rebellious to dye your hair blue, to get a nose piercing and be covered in tattoos. We're hitting this weird inversion where if you really want to get under people's skin, you wear a suit and tie.
Yeah,
And you are
well,
in a
yeah,
committed
Tommy,
relationship.
if you really want to stand out, just
be conservative. That is the new like hardcore.
Yeah, you're right. Now you stand out. Now your situation is understandable. You're doing something in memory of your brother. It was a terrible situation that happened. Many of your fans know your brother took his own life, and I understand that people have other, and say, by the way, tattoos are not new. People have been doing this
forever
throughout the ages, so they have a rich history of it. Some of them, really are body art.
Some are beautiful,
but there is a copycat nature to it. When you talk about doing something different than your parents, most of the reasonableness in doing that is to not make the same mistakes as your parents. So a common one is a mother or father was an alcoholic, and someone says, I don't drink.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, okay, I understand that one. Or mother and father were a chain smoker and they don't smoke. Or mother and father were, abusive to children, and they end up. So most of the time people are trying to correct the obvious mistakes that they see. But anyhow, this has been a very interesting conversation.
Yes,
we've finished up with this idea that somehow Pride Month has turned into a ghoulish, almost a hyper aggressive situation, display of aggressions all over the world simultaneously. And now we've seen this tension of the transgender medicine, all the surgical medical outcomes look terrible, states trying to ban it, and now judges overturning the bans.
I was gonna say, sorry to interrupt, it would be an interesting thing to maybe try to unpack one day for a future episode. Would be what was that? There was like a manic dancing mania like 400 years ago in Europe, where it's literally called like the mania of 1602. You should look it up. It's insane. People were just dancing in the streets until their death. And it passed on like a virus, like across the continent of Europe, where people were, it just lasted for like 24 months, where people would just, and they would be like crying. They'd be like, I'm so tired, but they would just keep dancing. It's an insane mental phenomenon where like, hey man, whole societies can just go nuts. And I would recommend to anybody listening, I think the 1903 book by Gustave Le Bon is The Crowd. And he goes into talking about just how insane a crowd can be. You can convince an entire crowd that they watched a building burn down, and the building's still there.
Tell me, people have pointed out the same with witch trials.
Yeah.
This idea of someone saying, wow, she's a witch. And the next thing, what things happen, then it started out maybe as something funny, and then it just kept going.
You're burning someone at the stake and everyone's cheering. So we might be watching that, man. In 100 years, they might be like, how'd that happen? back in the
So tell me,
2020s.
the book is called The Crowd.
The Crowd by Gustav Le Bon, Lebon.
Good
And I think,
recommendation.
yeah, I think he wrote it like before World War I even broke out. And it's crazy. Sorry, but I know I gotta let you go. But he wrote it in the like 1903 or 1905, but he describes to a T the rise of Hitler. And it's kind of eerie. And
Wow.
yeah.
Such a good recommendation. Tommy, you're the best. We got to leave it there.
Yes,
Enjoy
sir.
Dr. Grossman. I'm Dr. Peter McCullough. Make sure you follow me. My website, petermcculloughmd.com. Courageous Discourse, Substack, top Substack out there now, America Out Loud Talk Radio, McCullough Report, and follow me all over Twitter and social media, top doctor account who's practicing and seeing patients.
Yes, sir. All of that in the description and by the book, The Courage to Face COVID-19. Dr. McCullough, thank you for your time as
Thank you.
always. I love you.
Okay.
And till next time, man. Thank you so
All right.
much. Guys,
Big
thank